Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, once again, sincere apologies for the delayed start. We were waiting for some colleagues who, some of them are still on the way, but some have made it. We don't take for granted those who came very early. Yeah, so welcome to Kapingila House, where we are going to be delivering a press statement issued by different civil society organizations. We have some of the leaders who are representing some of the organizations that have issued this statement. So I'll just, my name is Vusumozi. So from the far left, we have Ms. Anne Bewe Anamela. She is the Executive Director of NGOCC. Then we have Leah Diana Mitawa, the Executive Director of the Zambia Council for Social Development. We have Josiah Kalala, the Executive Director of Chapter 1 Foundation. Then we have Linda Kasonde, the Executive Director of the LCK Freedom Foundation. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Peter Manangombe, the Director of the CCMG, the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. So I shall hand over to Linda. She will read the statement on behalf of the CSOs that are indicated on the statement. And then after the presentation of the statement, we'll invite you to ask questions or seek any clarification. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll now proceed to read the statement on behalf of the CSOs who are named at the end of the statement. We, the undersigned civil society organizations of Zambia, are alarmed at the disturbing and rapidly deteriorating state of political freedoms in our country. As Zambia prepares for the 2026 general elections, we are witnessing a pattern of organized violence, intimidation, and systematic harassment, mainly directed at opposition political figures and their supporters. This is an assault not merely on individuals, but on democratic foundations of our republic. We issue this statement in fulfillment of human rights and the rule of law, and in the firm belief that silence in the face of injustice is itself a form of complicity. Incidents of concern. We record and condemn in the strongest possible terms the following specific incidents that have come to our attention. Firstly, Mr. Gary Nkombo, a respected political figure who is exercising a constitutional right to stand as an independent member of parliament candidate for Mazabuka, has been subjected to targeted violence, intimidation, and obstruction of his right to file his nomination and to campaign freely by virtue of an arrest against him for a crime of assault of which he is the victim. The attacks on his person and his campaign activities are a direct violation of Article 20 of the Constitution of Zambia, which guarantees freedom of expression, and Article 21, which protects the right to freedom of assembly and association. Secondly, Mr. Xavier Chungu, who has declared his intention to contest the 2026 presidential election, has similarly been subjected to harassment and intimidation through an arrest designed to suppress his candidacy and silence his political voice. Every Zambian who meets the constitutional requirements has the inalienable right to seek the highest office in the land without fear. Any attempt to deny him that right is an attack on the sovereignty of the Zambian people. Thirdly, we are gravely disturbed by the arrest and harassment directed at Ms. Keti Nyangwe, the intended United Party for National Development, UPND, mayoral candidate for Lusaka, and against her supporters, including members of NGOCC, for attempting to file her nomination. Women participating in politics face disproportionate levels of violence and intimidation, and the targeting of Ms. Nyangwe and her supporters represents a particularly egregious attack on the democratic participation of women in Zambia's political life. Underhanded tactics dressed up as politics. Central to our concern is the practice of dribbling or outmaneuvering political candidates through underhanded, deceitful, and illegitimate means. In this political context, it refers to the deployment of dirty tactics, the use of violence, intimidation, and the manipulation of state institutions, and the abuse of legal processes to knock opponents off course, rather than defeating them through a legitimate contest of ideas, policies, and democratic persuasion. Let us be very clear. A political player who cannot win on the field of political argument, vision, public confidence, and who instead resorts to tripping, elbowing, and fouling opponents off the pitch is not a leader. They are dishonest and should take no pride in doing so. The violence experienced by Gary Nkombo, Xavier Chungu, Keti Nyangwe, and her supporters is the politics of fear deployed against the politics of choice. We reject it utterly. Zambia's democracy demands that the contest for power be declared by voters, not by vigilantes, by ballots, not. The failure and complicity of the police service. We condemn unequivocally the failure of the Zambia Police Service to protect victims of political violence and to discharge its constitutional duty to uphold law and order impartially. A police service that stands aside while citizens are attacked, intimidated, and silenced for exercising their democratic rights is not a protector of the people. It is an instrument of oppression. Worse still, we have observed the deeply troubling trend of the law being weaponized against the very victims of the violence, rather than the perpetrators. This selective and partisan application of the law, where those who speak out, assemble, or campaign for their opposition find themselves facing police action. This constitutes a profound and unacceptable perversion of justice. We remind the Inspector General of Police and every officer in the Zambia Police Service that their oath of office demands impartiality. They serve Zambia and its constitution, not any political party, any government of the day, or any individual. And we call for immediate independent investigations into all reported incidents of political violence, with perpetrators prosecuted to the full extent of the law, regardless of political affiliation. Fourthly, a warning to all Zambians. We are all potential victims. In the darkest chapter of the 20th century, the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller, who himself survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote the words that have echoed through the conscience of humanity ever since. We reproduce them here, not as a distant historical curiosity, but as a mirror held up to our present moment. He said this: "First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I am not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I am not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not. Now coming for Keti Nyanyangwe and the women of should refuse to allow cultural authority to be misused for partisan political purposes and to use their respected platforms to promote peace, tolerance, and democratic values. 7, religious leaders should promote peace, encourage dignified democratic participation and engagement, and continue to speak out in clear, unequivocal condemnation of political violence in all its forms. And lastly, to all well-meaning Zambians in civil society, the media, the private sector, the diaspora, and beyond, they should raise their voices against this violence. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is surrender. We call on every Zambian who loves this country and its hard-won democratic freedoms to speak up, speak out, and refuse to normalize political violence. Zambia has a proud democratic history. We have had competitive elections. We have experienced peaceful transfers of power. We have built institutions, however imperfect, that embody our collective aspiration for a just, free, and prosperous society. All of that, every hard-won gain of our democratic journey, is at risk when political violence is allowed to take root and flourish. The 2026 general elections must be a celebration of Zambia's democracy, not a funeral for it. Every candidate, whether from a ruling party, an opposition party, or standing as an independent, deserves to campaign freely, to be heard, and to be protected. Every voter deserves a genuine choice. Every Zambian deserves a country in which the ballot, and not the boot, determines who leads. Enough is enough. The violence must stop now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Linda, for delivering that statement. Maybe before we open it up for questions or requests.
Just to mention that this statement is made on behalf of the following civil society organizations: ActionAid Zambia, Alliance for Community Action, Caritas Zambia, Chapter 1 Foundation, the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, LCK Freedom Foundation, NGOCC, Transparency International Zambia, Zambia Council for Social Development, Bloggers of Zambia, and Panos Institute of Southern Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And maybe before we invite questions, I don't know if any of the colleagues would like to add, but I think as Linda has mentioned, that the statement was on behalf of the organizations that are listed, the majority of who are represented here. Maybe just to indicate that we have also been joined by Vides Tematema, the Executive Director of ActionAid Zambia. So we have a registration form that we would request. We are just using it to get your contact details for easy follow-up. So I will request that as the discussion is ongoing, you kindly fill it in and pass it on to the next person. do we have any questions, any requests for clarification? I've seen okay, our request that you identify yourself and indicate the media house that you represent, and then you ask your question as much as possible. Maybe we'll take 3 questions at a go, and then let's try to minimize the number of questions you can ask. At most 2. Then if you have more, we'll give you another chance. Thank you.
Good morning once more. My name is Motita Mlinga from Cloud FM Radio. My question is on the cases let me just go to the point. Is it fair for you to cite Zambia as a case of humiliation and violation when we are told that he actually broke the oath of secrecy? Yeah. And they actually cited the State of Security Act as a legal binding that he actually violated. Are you fair? Are you justified to cite that as a case of violation and humiliation?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Francis Palo. I'm a freelance journalist. I'll start with one of your quotes. Silence is not neutrality, it is surrender. The political mood has...
Thank you very much. Do we have a third question? Okay, so we have 2 questions from Mwatita on the citation of Mr. Chongo, and then from Francis seeking our assessment in terms of the freeness and the fairness of the current campaign period. So I'll request colleagues, we can, those who think they can respond, please kindly indicate them to speak.
I'll go first. On the comment about Mr. Chungu, I think for not just his case, even Mr. Nkombo, he's been charged with assault. I think we have to look at the legitimacy of the charges that have been brought against the person, and whether what was said was indeed a violation of that oath of secrecy. From what's on the public record, much of what was said is already in the public domain. So it's then unfortunate to then charge somebody for saying something that is in the public domain. And it's difficult from outside looking in to differentiate that this is not politically motivated. But again, we're going to see how the prosecution proceeds. With regard to the political environment, I think the question highlights that people are not speaking because they are afraid or candidates that are either in opposition or not supported by the ruling party are targeted by violence. So that already indicates that the environment might not be as free and fair as we expect in a democratic society.
Just to write on what Josiah has said, and I think the question that came, whether when I think fairness itself, the word fairness and the act of fairness might be as important as the perception of fairness. So I think as Josiah rightly put it, when you look at what has been happening, much of what Mr. Chung referred to, yes, is in public domain, and I think he was voicing out his opinion. But if you look at the number of legislation that he's alleged to have broken, I think it might be about 5 or 7. One wonders why. When you look at the issue of Gary Nkombo and you see the videos, you could see him walking alone and then he's accosted. And clearly he was seen as a victim, if those videos are real and not AI. But then what is surprising is that a few days later, the same victim who was running away is then arrested. So the issue of perception is very important. And right now, silence might not mean that people are okay. It could be that people are afraid. We need people to speak out. We can only have a thriving democracy if people are open and don't have to speak from their diaspora to be open. So we need Zambian citizens, we need the voter to debate the kind of leadership that we have. I would also like to add on the issue of independence. I think we have the highest number of independents, which is unprecedented as a country. So clearly you could see that there's a lot of displeasure even within the political clubs themselves. And this is why as civil society organizations, the right, we want to say no and send out a very strong message in terms of let's protect the peace that we have. Let's not let the situation deteriorate further than this.
Maybe just to add with regards to the issue of silence during campaigns, it's actually very concerning. I can't remember a period of campaigning that has been as quiet as this, in the sense of opposition political parties being allowed to gather and express themselves. We've seen also the attempt to ban a political song on the airwaves. We've seen how this new Public Gatherings Act has been enacted, which will severely disadvantage opposition political parties during a campaign period. And also, this, as we've said in our statement, severely affects the voters' ability to hear from alternative voices or different voices. And that is a breach of democracy, because democracy is about pluralism. It's about allowing a multitude of voices to be heard so that the voter or the citizen can distill from those voices who they want to follow. And that ability is being curtailed. So there are many things that we're concerned about with this election. And, you know, there have been concerns about this election erupting into violence. That can happen where people are stifled and are not allowed to express themselves. So it's incumbent on those in authority to make sure that the playing field is as even as possible, so that all citizens can express themselves freely and all voters can choose without intimidation.
I want to speak to the issue of violence and the way historically it's been proved that violence is one of the greatest deterrents for the participation of women in elections. For example, what we saw with Katie being arrested and thrown into police cells would intimidate a lot of women from participating in elections. It would intimidate even men, youth, persons with disability. Generally, violence is a great deterrent to participation in elections. And where an environment deters people's free participation, we should all be gravely concerned. Concerning the silence, for those of you that follow social media, I think you'll have seen in comment sections a number of times when there's a discussion that is very pertinent to the country, and people will just say, I won't say anything because I don't have a lawyer. What does that mean? It means that people are afraid to speak because they know the repercussions. They know that if they speak around certain subject matters, they might face arrest. That in itself is evidence that there is fear to speak. And that cannot be allowed in a democratic country.
Thank you so much. Do we have any additional questions? Any requests for clarification? I see Francis has a follow-up. And any other person who would like to ask a question?
It's yeah, you commented on the songs. It was one of my questions because the rate in the previous election, actually, we saw that they sponsored some of these songs, but this time around now, they want to opposition not to, you know. So I think it's a valid observation. You commented on independence. My question is, what would you make of the mass withdrawals of independent candidates? Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question relating to the withdrawals of some independent candidates. I don't know.
Well, we can only assume there's something in the background leading to that, but a person, much as they have the right to participate in the process, they also have the right to, to withdraw their participation. But as you've indicated, it's quite alarming because the numbers are quite high. But I think what comes to mind is a fundamental flaw in the legal framework, because when you look at the law, it does not expressly indicate how one should actually withdraw from the race and what that actually means. So again, it speaks to the process before, how we rushed into enacting a constitution that did not pay particular attention to some of these provisions. And now we have an Electoral Process Act that does not provide for forms and how a candidate should withdraw. So it's very unclear, and who is supposed to accept that particular withdrawal, and what happens in terms of election management and administration itself. So it's actually creating a lot of chaos, and this is what civil society had been talking about when the process of constitutional reform started, because we needed to think through about the consequences of some of these actions, and exactly what we are seeing now.
Maybe just to add, certainly in the case of Gary Nkombo, that's an instance where we clearly saw somebody trying to be prevented from filing as an independent candidate as a previous member of a political party. So the background with regards to other independent candidates who are trying to file in their nominations or compete in this election. And maybe the other thing to say is some of these independent candidates have filed as independents because they weren't, the adoption process did not proceed in the right manner. So they may have been adopted, but somehow did not find themselves the ones who were filing their nominations, as we saw with Ms. Nanyangwe. So this is a very big problem for democracy, because it means that communities who have chosen someone to represent them are not properly being represented by their choice. And again, that is a clear sign that our democracy is not being exercised in the manner in which it should be, because democracy is about choice. And if people do not have the ability to choose who they want to see in office, then that is not democracy.
And maybe related to the many independents that we have seen, I think also this particular election we saw an unprecedented number of double or triple adoption certificates. And I think the case of Kate Nanyangwe, who even up until the time she was arrested was being assured by senior party leaders within the UPND, is a case, an example. The only thing is that maybe because she's a woman, she's not been able to stand as an independent. But I think we've seen that elsewhere. It triggered people standing as independents, and later on they were withdrawing. So what we can see from the outside, we might not know what is happening within the party structures, but what we see from outside is a process that is flawed. And I think the concern we have is that our constitution prescribes or expects the political parties that are vying to rule this country to also mirror Zambia's democratic characteristics. So if we see that happening at intra-party level, we are concerned that this is something that will be taken in the administration or governance of this country. So a lot has been happening that shouldn't have happened. And I think we've seen people have been kicked out that have invested time campaigning. So all those point to the reason why maybe perhaps we might have independence and why us as voters, citizens, we might be concerned if the people that we felt could deliver have been left out.
Finance.
Also, just to add on the question on withdrawals, we want to put it on record that we've actually observed, heard, and watched videos circulating on social media where senior party officials in some political parties are actually appealing and coercing members to withdraw, giving an opportunity to other nominated or voted members that will stand on different political party tickets. And for us, that's a serious concern because every member of any political party, individuals have the right to stand. So if the political party has not adopted and the person feels that they can stand, I think the political parties should allow people to exercise their constitutional rights. So probably, and again, we are assuming that people or candidates could be withdrawing based on what is happening behind closed doors, which all of us are not privy to, but we can only speculate because we've heard and we've seen a number of videos circulating where senior officials are asking members to withdraw from the political race. Thank you.
I don't know if do we still have any questions. If there are no further questions, just to remind you to kindly fill in your details in the registration form that is going around. Then I'll ask my colleagues to just give their closing reflections.
My closing statement would be, in Zambia for so long, we have not complied with the SADC, but also international treaties that we've signed to as regards to gender inclusion. And this is an opportunity for government, for political parties, and for all concerned individual political allies and players to ensure that at local government, parliamentary level, we have numbers of women that will represent the voices of women. We've refused to sit behind and campaign for men. We want to be part and parcel of decision making at every level. And so therefore we are appealing to all political parties that actually we have signed to, ratified to, and we have pledged that we are going to ensure that we meet the targets that are set for us. And we are not asking for less, but 50% of women inclusion in all our political parties. Thank you.
My appeal is to political parties. What happens in the broader political arena is usually driven by what happens in political parties. We want to see intra-party democracy that reflects inclusion, in line with, as my colleague has said, the SADC protocols, which call for 50-50 representation of men and women. If that becomes the norm in political parties, it will become a standard even for the country. So let's sort out our intra-party democracy, let's sort out our intra-party practices, and ensure that whatever we state we are in our constitution, which is a democratic state, that reflects intra-party and then spills over across who we are as a nation.
I'll also give a rider, because one of the tenets of democracy is the rule of law. So in line with the SADC standards or principles for free and fair elections, member states are actually encouraged not to make any significant changes to their legislation, electoral laws, 6 months before an election. I think we saw Zambia make changes weeks before an election, 90 days before an election, and I think before the campaign period was kicked into gear. So I think going forward, this is an example of what we shouldn't do again as a country. If we need to make legal revisions, let's do them well before, so that all the competing parties have adequate time to understand the new electoral systems. Finally, but not least, is to you, our colleagues, the media. Civil society organizations are operating at a very difficult time, where I think all over we've seen that there's shrinking support. And we can only reach more citizens through the media. So I think just calling on you and appreciating the effort that you make to cover the work that civil society does. I think we need you more now than ever. And in that same vein, also call on analytical reporting. Let's have in-depth reporting. Let's follow cases. I think we've cited a number of cases here. Let's find out what is happening to Kate Nanyangwe, what is happening to Gary Kombo. Let's invest more in investigative journalism. Some of the questions we were asking about why we have independence this year is an answer that I think working together with the fifth estate, which is the media, we can find answers to. So I think there's a gap that needs to be filled in that area.
Thank you. My final reflection is democracy is a contest of ideas, and I'd encourage all political actors to let their ideas be what they use to entice voters to support them. Thank you.
I'll just add on to what Josiah just said. So, when the current government was elected into office, we were told that this is a government of democracy and the rule of law. This political dribbling that we are seeing is not clever. It's undemocratic and it's unconstitutional. We should be competing on ideas and policies that will advance the welfare of Zambian citizens. So my appeal is to those in authority, whether in the executive or whether in public institutions mandated to maintain law and order, please do act without fear or favor. Please uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So I think for me our statement is very clear in terms of demanding for responsibility and accountability from institutions such as the Zambia Police. They have a constitutional duty to protect citizens, to protect property. And I think that goes beyond the political actors, that also extends to you, the media. You need protection because the law demands that. And so we can only hope that the police will then reflect their conduct and ensure that they provide a conducive environment where every voter, every candidate feels safe to go about their business. But also, key institution here is the Electoral Commission of Zambia that is charged with a huge responsibility to manage elections in this country. And they have the power, both in the Constitution and in the Electoral Process Act, to protect voters, but also to provide a safe environment for the candidates to be able to contest. Their silence, their continued silence, or their spitting about the issue of nominations did not help matters, because when somebody is going to file a nomination, they are doing so at the invitation of the Constitution so as to fulfill their rights, but they are doing so in an area that is whose responsibility to manage is the Electoral Commission of Zambia. So I think learning from this and going forward, we expect that that institution will then use its powers to create a conducive environment for all candidates to participate in the electoral process.
Thank you so much. I think we have come to the end of our press briefing. As Linda did indicate that this statement was issued on behalf of Action Aid Zambia, Alliance for Community Action, Caritas Zambia, Chapter 1 Foundation, JCTR, LCK Freedom Foundation, NGOCC, TIZ, ZCSD, Bloggers of Zambia, and panel. So in case you need any additional information or clarification, you can use the contact for LCK Freedom Foundation, which is provided in the statement. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate your taking time to come. Okay, just... Yeah. So we hope everyone has indicated their